I remember when Eddie Hearn signed Andy Cruz. You had all these Matchroom fanboys, and that's what they are, the Matchroom fanboys, jumping up and down, screaming from the rooftops in the comment section of my videos about how wrong I was to claim that Eddie Hearn and Matchroom were over the crest of the hill. You know, I'd been saying that Eddie Hearn and Matchroom have basically peaked, and now they're just starting to go over the hill into a trough, into a decline. I'm not saying they can't come back up again in future, but as it is right now, they're just starting to go over the hill. They're past their peak. Maybe they'll reach another peak again in future. And so when I said that, huge backlash, and these Matchroom fanboys were holding up Andy Cruz as an example of why I'm wrong. Now, my first thought was, have these guys actually seen Andy Cruz fight? Because if they'd seen him fight, I don't think they'd be so gung-ho about saying I'm wrong. The reality is, Andy Cruz is a typical Cuban fighter. Typical in the sense that he has tremendous amateur credentials. He's a very skilled boxer, but he's not box office. Very few Cuban fighters have been box office draws over the years because they don't have, most of them, a fan-friendly style. There are a few exceptions. David Morrell, at 168 pounds, is an exciting fighter. People might argue Luis Ortiz was exciting, but this is not disproving the rule. Exceptions don't disprove the rule. The majority of these Cubans, as skilled as they may be, they tend to be defensive counterpunchers. And very, very few Cuban fighters ever learn to speak anything close to even conversational English. And when you're fighting in a predominantly English-speaking country, obviously Spanish is a big language in America as well, but you've got factions within the Latino market. And those factions generally don't tend to support fighters of other Latino ethnicities or other Latino nationalities. Not to any great degree anyway. So when it comes to Cubans, there are not as many Cubans in the United States as there are Puerto Ricans or certainly Mexicans, etc. So the Cuban fan base is going to be limited in terms of their actual countrymen. And then appealing to a broader audience is limited because they don't speak English. They'd have to try and break out of the Spanish-speaking market into the English-speaking market, but they don't manage to do that. These guys, most of them go live in Miami, and they just speak Spanish down there in Miami like 60% of other people that live there. And so they never managed to break the English-speaking market. So when people are acting like Eddie Hearn signing Andy Cruz is a game changer, this guy's not box office. You look at the way he fights. His last fight, again, was on the Berlanga undercard. It went 10 rounds. It was a UD for Andy Cruz. Cruz is very skilled, but I think it's going to take time. You know, some fighters have a style which translates over very well and very quickly to the pro game. But other fighters really have a style that's far better adapted to the amateurs, and they're found kind of wanting in the pros. So an example of that would be Daniyar Yelayusinov. I'm probably butchering his name now. The guy that was with Matchroom for a while, but then left. He just looked like a guy whose style was not translating well to pro boxing. Maybe he's adapted it since, I don't know. He's no longer with Matchroom. I haven't seen him fight for a long time. But yeah, he was someone that looked like he was struggling to transition to the pros. And with Andy Cruz, I don't see a guy that's going to be like an Artur Beterbiev, a Vasyl Lomachenko, to a lesser degree, Alexander Usyk. These guys will move very quick, particularly Lomachenko. Very quick. I don't think it's necessarily the wise thing to do to move Andy Cruz as quick as those guys, because I don't think his style is as well suited to the pros as theirs. He's got the ability, I think, to adapt. I think he's, still young enough and whatever, 28 years of age. I think you can adapt him to have more of a pro style, but it's going to take time. They're talking about throwing him in championship fights in the next 2 or 3 fights, unless it's just hyperbole from Eddie Hearn and he doesn't really intend to do that. They might want to wait until he's at least 10-0 before stepping him up into world class and having him challenge for titles. And even when he does do that, I'm not expecting him to light up the world with his performances. Even if he wins, probably going to be points wins where he's not really knocking people out or knocking people down. We'll see. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment. You can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.